Hello and welcome to Life Sciences Knowledge Hub. My name is David and this is your one-stop shop for industry insights and analysis. Joining us now is Euan Cameron of Cohesion Medical. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Euan. Tell us a bit about Cohesion, first of all.
Yes, thanks for having me. Cohesion's a digital health company based in Glasgow, Scotland. We've developed some award-winning and breakthrough technology around connecting citizens and patients with services, healthcare that they provided largely through like the National Health Service in Scotland. So and now across the UK, the ability to kind of connect between the individual and the service they receive, kind of creating a communication data bridge. And across that bridge, there's lots of data traffic. And what we can do is analyze some of that data traffic in real time. And that's attracting a lot of the life science interest in having some deeper data insights into real world data capture, synchronized alongside clinical data.
Thank you very much, and yes, greetings to Glasgow in Scotland from here, a little bit further south in the UK. So tell me, just how much of a negative effect on investment in life science areas, other than tackling the coronavirus, has there been, in oncology, for example?
I think the pandemic really has had a paradigm shift in terms of like investment. Obviously, the pursuit of vaccines has been the focus for many governments and even companies themselves as they shift from one technology and one condition focus onto sort of a more urgent COVID needs. I think in some ways, that has drawn investment interest away from more traditional areas, as you say, like, in cancers and maybe even other chronic conditions. But at the same time, I think it's been a stimulus for many organizations to kind of like rethink their models, rethink how they deliver innovative therapeutic and intervention solutions. And for ourselves in digital health, there's been quite a significant interest in digital health as a technology. So in some ways, we're a positive effect of the coronavirus. There's been a rising number of deals in the digital health sector. But I think it's been kind of as I said, a kind of paradigm shift. I'm sure there's been a dip in investment in some of your more traditional life science areas. But as we come out of coronavirus, I actually see that hiatus that's been caused by COVID, allowing companies to kind of like rethink maybe how they do drug discovery, drug development, real world data capture, and then coming back in a kind of a much more stronger and perhaps even with a wider, more global perspective on what their markets really are. So it's a kind of a mixed bag of like, positive in digital health, negative in more traditional areas. But I think overall, there's a stimulus effect from coronavirus itself.
Yeah, that stimulus effect, we've been talking about how it has been a catalyst for various sectors, various areas, and we've seen that here in this industry as well. What do you think can be done to encourage private sector to shift investment back to those areas where, as we've discussed, maybe the foot has been taken off the pedal over the recent 15, 18 months?
Yeah, I think as a result of coronavirus, I think we've, every healthcare system in the world has had to kind of like rethink how it delivers healthcare. I think that has led to a lot of change in how services are designed. And I think that kind of like change in service design should actually open up health data opportunities for companies to actually sort of engage better with, say, in the UK's National Health Service or for large healthcare providers across in different territories of the world. That kind of openness or kind of like move to being more open and moving more to kind of a population health approach, I think is actually going to create a lot of opportunities for private sector to engage better with health providers. And I think with a bit of government, stimulus is a good word, with a bit of government encouragement and support, I think actually that could be quite transformative as we go forward.
Yeah, you mentioned government priorities there. Do you think the shift in investment in coronavirus research has mainly been driven by the private sector, or has it been dictated by government policy? And, do we need to start lobbying government to ensure investments in areas other than coronavirus, those investments are maintained at high levels?
Yeah, obviously, governments by their natures are designed to think long term and generationally. Apart from when there's elections due, and then they become very short term. But the COVID itself has been, it's been a very immediate need, but actually it's now having long term impact. So I think there's a combination of government stimulus, pushing through innovation, creating space for innovation to happen, and the life science community actually filling that space with not just funding, but science to actually sort of like drive kind of like long-term solutions going forward. And there's obviously an economic need for that going long-term. Is like, how will we have more resilient health systems? What technologies and interventions and therapeutics will we need going forward, whether that's like, enabling or supporting like long COVID, or like different types of respiratory conditions, or indeed managing like backlogs with cancer waiting times, or indeed even just kind of looking at opportunities to tackle some of these rare diseases, but in a much different way, with a much more open data and ecosystem that allows researchers to actually be more responsive and actually have a much more granularity about the kind of the data that they can deal with to develop new drugs and therapeutics. So I actually think there's a bit of a shift, that's not just one or the other. I think private and the public sector can actually go together in a kind of more conjoined way to actually make some of this innovation happen.
You sound somewhat optimistic, Euan,
Yeah.
that investment in these areas, it will be more balanced in future, and that some of these important areas don't go underfunded.
Yeah, and again, it might be perhaps because I'm sitting at the kind of, if there's a stick called research at one end and real world at the other, the traditional life science pipeline is always, going from research to the real world, whereas we're actually going the opposite way of like real world back to research. And if you look at the deals that are being done in digital health, 2020 was a bumper year for investment in whether that's VC or corporate into the digital health area. I think that might actually also be a stimulus for like change with how traditional life science and big pharma companies actually work. Not just thinking that you're developing products from at a university level and delivering them to patients and then slightly forgetting about it. I think now the population level kind of need that's COVID's exposed is, can we actually use technology to capture data from the real world and actually feed that back to science and pump it in a way that actually kind of like delivers new science and new ways to think and maybe new products and services to develop. So I do feel optimistic because I am at that end of that stick. I think if I was more of a traditional life science biologist going back to my old days, I think I'd probably be thinking, oh dear, we've got quite, we need more funding and we're not sexy enough. But I think that's just about re-envisioning how science is done, and that's always an ongoing and exciting kind of progress for science itself and those that have careers in life science.
Sounds to me like you're chomping on the right end of the stick there, Euan. Listen, thank you very much indeed for joining us today, Euan Cameron from COHESION. Thank you.
Thank you.